We acknowledge the original owners of the land on which we podcast, whose stories were told for thousands of years. Today, we are recording in Meanjin. We pay our respects to elders past and present who may be listening. Sovereignty was never ceded. A quick note before we get started that there may be some swearing in today's podcast. If you don't like swearing or usually listen with children in the car, you have been warned. You're listening to What in the NDIS Now, a podcast where I, Hannah Redford, and my friend Sam Rosenbaum interview participants and providers about all things NDIS. Our guest today is James Reid.
Top of the morning, Hannah, and thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here. So tell us about what you do in the NDIS.
Oh, elite problem solver, I think I'd like to call myself. Currently, I'm in the role of people helping people officer. So my story sort of starts 4 or 5 years ago, where I fell into the industry because my son was diagnosed with ASD. Bit of a culture shock. Didn't know where to start and where to go. But being a very proactive dad, I started to do the job of a support coordinator subconsciously.
Yep.
And then when I actually met my support coordinator, they said, "You seem like you know what you're doing. Would you like a job?" And look, I don't believe in coincidences. I think things happen for a reason. I took a change, became a support coordinator. My background actually is in law and commerce with active law degrees and done all those exciting things, if you like that. But I fell into it, but loved it because I guess really 5 years on, after my son's diagnosis, I realised that the people around you and that support you can make or break and be life-changing, really. So I was really thankful and happy of the supports my son gets and living his best life. And I wanted that for everybody. So I thought, what was the best way I can try and use my 2 hands to help as many people as others? So fell into a role of managing a team of 5 support coordinators and just mentoring them in, I guess, navigating the NDIS world. And as I think we are, elite problem solvers.
Yeah. Yep.
So I sit across the table from you today, super excited about the role that I'm in. I currently work at Here to Home, a specialist support coordination and support coordination service, and love every minute of it. But it really is a journey for me on people helping people, as I've said to you before. It's just so rewarding, and I absolutely love every minute of it.
That's amazing. So, and you're from Adelaide.
Yes, I'm from the southern state. And I said to my CEO a little way back, that I love the weather in Queensland, as I've said to you before, and that it's socially accepted you can wear shorts to work. So I said, why don't we branch out? I mean, we're extremely successful in South Australia by the people that we have working with us, and I guess our team-based approach. So I said, why not take this into the sunny state of Queensland? So we came over in late October to one of the expos there, and just to get a vibe of what Queensland was like, you know, good, bad or indifferent. And we loved it. We came away just going, how can you not enjoy getting up in 25 degrees 9 months of the year, Hannah?
Yes.
How can that not be the best start to your day instead of built and rain at the moment in the southern states and stuff? So yes, but again, as I said to you before, the journey of life is that, you know, we had one SSC in South Australia that moved up to the sunny state. They saw the light, so to speak, Hannah.
Yes.
And we said, rather than losing her to the industry, why don't we follow her? So look, as I said, came up in October, loved it. Our plan was she was coming here in January, so I would follow her in tow. And that's where I had the pleasure of meeting you at Connect Fest. And as I said to you before, I believe it's all meant to be. So look, just really excited. We obviously, thanks to your support and others, have some participants on the ground here now. So the wheels of progress are returning. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so rewarding because I think if you can help people in the smallest of ways, it can make the hugest change in their life. Yeah. However, I've realised you need a team to do that. So, you know, as I said to you when I first met you, I came up here to almost create a League of Nations, aka superheroes, you know what I'm like, where you can, participants have complete choice and control, and that is where it starts, and I'm extremely passionate about that. But I would love them to have complete choice and control over an elite group of providers.
Yeah.
So one where we say, you know, I have a friend of mine, Hannah, where I think that she can do X, Y, and Z for you to live your best life.
Yeah.
And just give our participants more of an elite basket, if you like, of providers to choose from. So that was just an epiphany I had like late last year, and then dumped that on your doorstep an hour after meeting you. But, you know, it's just about, I want to, as when I met you, I want to find some passionate people that have the ability to be able to pivot when the laws of the NDIS or goalposts change. And we can talk about that for a while, young lady, can't we?
Yes. I mean, well, that's part of what this podcast is about, because the NDIS constantly change rules and what is happening and what they'll accept and tweak what is reasonable and necessary. And so I wanted to make sure everyone hears what are the trends we're seeing? Yeah, what's changing now? What are they saying now? Yeah. And when our huge lot of changes usually come in July with the price guide, and then we'll need a really long podcast to say, here are all the changes now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, historically, a lot of support coordinators too are very gun shy in about trying to, I guess, utilise the NDIS to its full advantages for their participants, worried about whether they can or can't. You know, quite often when we will do the right thing and do a little web chat with the NDIS and ask them questions, we're basically asking those that have created the laws what's right or wrong. And coming from a legal background, obviously, what is reasonable and necessary is, you know, can be interpreted in different ways. Yeah. It can be successfully argued in different ways. Yeah. But I think just because goalposts change, there are always other ways to skin a cat, I think. But it's important that we just try and let us lovely little support coordinators and all those providers know what we can and can't do, because at the end of the day, participants' lives are dependent on it. Sorry, I hate the word participants too. I can't, you know, it's our NDIS members. For me, yes.
The people we support.
Yeah, basically, the people we just support to live their best life. Yeah. Because, you know, it's important too, I think, as well, for me particularly, where building and maintaining relationships is the biggest one for me.
Absolutely.
When you do that, you have an opportunity to at least find out what people needs are, and then obviously find the providers that can match around that. There is never one hard and fast rule.
Never.
Never. And that's what makes it so exciting, the job, I think, because we really are just in the industry of people helping people on their journey of life.
Yes.
So the more people that you have in an elite group that can do that, I think the more successful outcomes that you have.
Yes.
Easier said than done, though, Hannah.
Oh, yeah. A lot easier said than done. It takes a lot of networking.
It does. It does.
Which I love networking, but then I don't get paid for networking.
Well, you don't get paid tangibly at the front end, but I think at the back end, ultimately, and this is a thing too where I found, you know, I certainly won't name names, but you can find out pretty soon whether a provider is solely and wholly seeing a dollar sign over an NDIS member's head. And that at times can be very deflating. I come from, whilst I was doing my law degree, I had to pay for it, of course, and spent a lot of time at the top end in hospitality operations. So customer service was it. Yes. That made or break your business. I firmly believe that if you just provide good service, the reward follows. Yeah. Namely, getting paid for it. And word of mouth has been probably the biggest success story to hit home, I guess. And that's just a credit to the people that work with us and the reputations they have. We don't have to always be right.
Yes.
But it's important that when mistakes are made or there is a need to acknowledge, you do.
Yeah.
I am sorry. I made a mistake, Hannah.
Yes.
Because if you assume you're not going to make a mistake for the entirety of one of those NDIS members' lives, you are telling porkies, young lady.
Yes.
And that's that thing about building and maintaining relationships. You want to make sure because of choice and control, participants make change all the time. Just because sometimes a change is as good as a holiday. And you find out pretty quick when you're dealing with providers and if they want to make a change, exiting a relationship with class.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That is a podcast for another day. And I think that's where you find out the true colours, I guess, of providers. And sometimes I don't think a lot of providers realise that, well, Adelaide's certainly a small place and that word of mouth goes a long way.
Oh, yes.
So, what do they say? 1 negative turns into 3.
Yes.
So, yeah, I guess we have found out as well when relationships needing to cease or change, just to exit with class, Hannah. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow you might be using the same provider and having to problem solve with them. So, it is all, I think, the successes and the overall quality of life of those people that we help all comes down to building and maintaining good working relationships.
It's exactly the same in Brisbane. And I think not just with the people that we support, but also if you have staff that leave your company, you need to do that with class.
Absolutely.
Because then they go and talk to everyone as well. And there have been companies that I've left under pretty bad circumstances.
Yeah. We've all got the
because
t-shirt.
Because you don't leave a job because you don't like most of the time because you don't like it. You leave it because of bad management.
Absolutely.
And it was some poor management. And I think that if as a manager you can say, well, that's unfortunate, but I wish you all the best, then someone is more likely to maybe in a few years come back around and want to work for you again.
Absolutely.
Or something like that. But I have heard, a few providers get a bit upset when their support workers leave and they're like, oh, but I trained them and I did this and I did that. And I'm like, no, you're just making a better overall workforce for the whole of the industry. And that's what we need more than you keeping that person to yourself. And just, like you said, do it with class.
Yes, definitely.
And just go, okay, no worries. Let's make sure you have a good reference for where you're going next. Let's make sure, you're happy and everything is squared away. And
the power of positivity, Hannah, and class. You made a couple of good words there. The success of people's lives, and that's what we're talking about, are the people around them.
Yeah.
So it's important of the well-being of staff, first and foremost. And this is an area where I'm very passionate, hence my own given title of People Helping People Officer, because that also includes our team members.
Yeah.
I'm very privileged that here to home who I work for, our staff or team retention rate is the best I've ever experienced. Yeah. I don't think anyone's left. Might have to do a rap check on that, but I'm pretty confident in the time I've been there. And look, if they do, well, we want to know why and what we can do better.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to always evolve with it as well, because look, life is short. It's just, we could get into this. I won't go off too much of a sidetrack, but so often we look to the future and what we see as success. And I understand that concept that we've all learnt. However, we've got to enjoy the journey, Hannah.
Yes.
And that includes today
Yes.
and the people you work with.
Yes.
We live in a very a world that at times can be very sterile, allied health and all those type of things. Why can't we have fun or enjoyment in that, I guess, but be professional too? Because again, we're involved in someone's daily life. Wouldn't we like to try and make that better in whatever way that looks like?
Yes.
So, there's never enough good staff
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's our job on the journey, or our mission,
Yes.
to try and help as many people, I guess, have the power to help others.
Yeah.
You know, whatever that looks like, though. It's always, I think that's what I find so rewarding in the job.
Yeah.
Everyone's definition of enjoyment is different.
Yeah.
So at times people ask me what my job is, and I find it very hard to explain, except to say I help people live their best life.
Yeah.
And people like kind of scratch your head, and it's like, well, that's pretty much what we do.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
But I don't profess to know everything,
No.
except to know having a good team around you that you can fall back on, or support you even, is so important.
Yeah.
Very good points, Hannah. You always have me at hello. Yes.
Talking about your people, I met your Benjamin yesterday.
Oh, stop it. Did you?
Yes.
Is that why he accidentally rang me at 1 o'clock this morning? He apologised for it. I hope he was nice to you.
Oh, he paid for my drink.
Did he?
So.
Perfect. Because I bought him a lovely Korean barbecue the other day, but he's well deserving of it. A beautiful young guy with such effort and passion.
Yes.
That again doesn't need to know everything.
Yes.
But I just, as I say to a lot of my team, that we don't always win, okay?
Yeah.
It's kind of like I give the analogy of we're going into ER and we got triage. They're all coming through. We must focus on our wins more than our losses.
Absolutely.
You know, otherwise it can become a very, sad and dark place. But I always tell my people, and Benjamin's no different, that regardless of your win or loss in a NDIS member's life, the fact that you're supporting them, I'm already comforted that they're there helping and you're holding the spit bucket. So I already know straight away that if my people are at the table helping out, that the outcome's going to be better, you know, even if it isn't, what was needed. And look, I think of our job a lot as in we are elite problem solvers, aren't we really?
Oh, yes. It's funny that you say that, because so often when people go, oh, what does a support coordinator do? And I'm always lost for how to describe what a support coordinator does, because it's so varied and it really depends on the person I'm working with, because you can have 30 different people on your caseload and do it 30 different ways.
Absolutely.
Because everyone needs you to work slightly differently and do things slightly differently. And so you cannot ever go, as a support coordinator, I do X, Y, and Z in that exact order, because it will never, ever work. And so trying to explain to people, this is what a support coordinator does, I can never quite capture it. But it's so funny to every now and again what I said to Benjamin is there's every now and again, and it's solely to do with the NDIS, never the people I support. I love them. Yeah. But every now and again I regret every decision I ever made that brought me to this moment in time. And I curse the darkness.
Just call me, okay? Because that's normal, all right? That's absolutely normal.
And then I get up the next day and I'm like, all right, back at, hitting my head against this brick wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But it is sometimes like that, because you're just like, what?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, and you are naive to think that you're not dealing with people's personal emotions in this space.
Yeah.
It's their lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's barriers of communication and others. You make a really good point about when you get to that point, all right? Because everybody gets to that point. You need to have someone to call and vent to. I make sure that everyone has that.
Yes.
And I tell my team members, and they do it for me equally as well.
Yes.
That venting and getting it off your chest is part of the process. But then you can, you get a nice sleep into you and something to eat and take a breather.
Yes.
I have to remind myself that every day I wake up, that I have a privileged role, that I get to help 30 people, as you said, live their best life, whatever that looks like.
Yes.
And
be an elite problem solver.
Well, I think about that, because people always ask, like, what do you think your point of difference might be? I hear that a lot.
Yes.
And I hear a lot of rehearsed answers. I want to help people live their best life. And none of that is wrong.
No.
But when I'm looking at a point of difference of myself and others, because as I said to you before, my background came from law and dealing. When I was a solicitor, I dealt with SGIC, which was a compulsory third-party provider in South Australia. So I worked on the other side of insurance and things like that. So it can be very daunting because we're dealing in this world. But it's not. It's important that we continue to push the boundaries within reason, okay?
Yes.
And to ask questions.
Yes.
And it's okay to get no.
Yes.
But then it's important that we just come around another way and see, is there another way we can do this? And that's where I find the greatest enjoyment is collaborating to be able to just have a real unique set of skill sets to problem solve.
Yeah. Yeah.
To don't take no for an answer.
Yes.
How do we do it another way?
Yes.
And if I don't know how to do it, then I'm going to ring Hannah and see if she knows how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think we all, rather than keeping your cards to your chest, so to speak,
Yes.
I think you should be able to stand on, like I tell my team and myself that I'll conduct myself as if the entire world's looking at me.
Yes.
It's the way to do it.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to ask questions or say, I don't know, Hannah, but I'm going to go and call someone and see if I can find out. I think sometimes we're a little bit too gun shy historically because, people are worried if they get it wrong.
Yes.
That there is huge repercussions.
But that point of difference, talking about that point of difference, I often say to people who I train or some providers when I meet them, I say, I want providers who are willing to, if they make a mistake, put their hand up and say, I made a mistake and I'm going to fix it, or acknowledge when they don't know something and I'm going to go and research the shit out of it because I want to know the answer to your question.
Yep.
I want to figure out how do we get this particular thing through the NDIS because I feel it's reasonable and necessary. I can see how it relates to your disability. How do we convince the NDIS of the same thing?
Absolutely. And look, we could talk forever, but there's another point where I honestly think at times now, particularly specialist support coordinators are almost like paralegals. Yes. Like I'm now looking to case law from the AAT and others for when people tell me you can't do that. I'm like, well, hang on, let me just do a keyword search on reasonable and necessary and gym membership and see if they say no. And my point being is that
no, and the NDIS is just huge. And
It's the Matrix. It's the Matrix. I'm telling you now, that's how I look at it, okay? There's no one person, all right?
No.
Yes.
Well, so I often...
And it's deliberate.
I often say to support coordinators, you need to know, like, that all of these things exist, at least. Like, no, like the headlines in a newspaper. You need the headlines of everything.
Knowledge.
But then you need to be in the detail of the few things that you definitely do day to day, right? You don't have to be in the details of all these other things. You just have to have the headlines of those. And then when someone goes, hey, I need this thing that you don't deal with every day, you can go, I know that exists.
Absolutely.
I know that exists because I know the headlines.
Yep.
Let me go and find out for you.
I have notepads now that used to be booklets, but I thought you can lose them now with ideas and stuff. So I love to use the old iPhone notes.
Yes.
My point is I do a lot of jotting because of that exact point, reference points.
Yes.
My team often says you have the worst short-term memory, James, but I like to tell them I've got an overflow of information.
Yes.
Come back to me in one more week and I'll remember it. But I guess it's breaking down the walls of fear of asking.
Yes.
And you can ask more than one person too.
Okay?
It's okay.
So what one of the things that bugs me the most about the NDIS.
Yes.
Well, there's several.
There is.
Strap yourself in. But
I'm listening.
My number one is how inconsistent it is because the NDIS is not one hive mind.
No.
The NDIS is individual people who are then interpreting what they believe is the NDIS and the philosophy of the NDIS. So you can ask or send your stuff off and it lands on Fred's desk.
Mhm.
But then Bob could have a totally different opinion, and if it landed on Bob's desk, there would be a totally different outcome.
Absolutely.
But that annoys me.
Yep.
Because what happens is we can one day have the same sort of reports and send it in and get everything we needed, and the next day get none of it. And you're like, it's maddening, because you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So you could know all the case law in the world and it still doesn't help.
And then quite often support coordinators, particularly are gun shy, where if you're not getting it in writing, you can't do it.
Yes.
What NDIS person at all, if you interpret it different, is going to put it in writing and say it's okay? Like, my point is that, like, I shouldn't say it as in seek forgiveness, not permission in some respects. My point is that what's reasonable and necessary is an interpretation. We are dealing in the legal realm, I guess.
Yes.
So as long as you've got your ducks in a row as your justifications, it's okay to be wrong.
Yes.
Okay. And still have done it. My point is fraud and all those things they look at is when you're blatantly having disregard to the NDIS legislation and you're doing it with ulterior motives.
Right.
So, and that happens a lot. Like, let's be honest about it. But I don't think
it happens as much as people think that it does.
Well, AI is picking up a lot of if it's happening. So I agree with you as well, because there's obviously, I understand there's a lot of scaremongering tactics used to avoid abuse of funds and others, but that shouldn't stop us trying new things if we think it's justified.
Yes.
We believe it's reasonable and necessary. The participant and the supports around them do. So why wouldn't we have a crack at trying to get, it funded, because it can change people's lives. I think now part of our role should be challenging the norm for, it's okay to say someone needs X amount of hours for a speech therapist and an OT. But maybe they just need some time to chill in a beautiful 25-degree heated pool and enjoy a bit of hydro for sensory stuff.
Yeah.
That's an example where I just think that we shouldn't be straight-lined in our thoughts.
Yes.
We should have our participant in the centre.
Yes.
Person-centred.
Yes.
And then around that, we should have them asking us questions and always challenging the norm for them to live their best life.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? We can talk about this forever. What are your thoughts on the NDIS though? Like the scheme and others.
That's interesting, because that's actually one of my questions. It's the last question.
Okay, so do we hold off then until then?
Well, I mean, we can have a tackle at it now.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So in your ideal NDIS world, what would you like to see?
What would I like to see?
Or how would you do it?
Well, you know that I'm the power of positivity guy and the most optimistic. I think one thing I learned when I started doing this, I guess professionally, if you like, was that when we didn't get a result from the NDIS that we wanted, we're so very quick to look at them, throw stones and everything else. And because there's emotion with that and there's frustration. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I like to think that there are a lot of countries that don't have this type of support network for those living in disability. I heard something randomly on a podcast in the car once where, I don't know if this is exactly correct, but 7 out of 10 people that can't walk are living without a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I went, wow, 7 out of 10 or something that high. We are so quick at times to throw the baby out with the bathwater that I think sometimes as support coordinators, because obviously we support participants. If we tell them that, oh my God, we didn't get what we need, the whole henny penny the sky is going to fall in, what are they going to think is going to happen?
Yes.
I think part of our job is to be able to elite problem solve again and work it out. So there are a lot of strategies, but are you asking me what I'd want to change about the NDIS?
Yes.
I think knowledge is power.
Yes.
Communication is key.
Yes.
So I think, and maybe this is part where we come from, I think we need to have more forums or discussions to hear solutions of how things have worked and just not the black and white, because we don't live in a black and white world.
No.
So what I am really worried about though is when is this funding gonna just break and we can't afford it anymore.
Okay,
so I want to kind of, I know that's tomorrow's problem, but that's one of the things that actually worries me a little bit with, obviously, it's getting harder and harder now to actually get into the NDIS. Not impossible, but certainly difficult with barriers.
Right.
That I worry about it, Hannah.
Okay, so there's been a lot of studies on this, that the NDIS, because the NDIS, what they fund, that money is for by and large is for people, right? Yep. It's for supports. It's generally not for stuff other than like, wheelchairs and beds and things, but not that many people need those things, right? So it's really for people, and then when you pay people, they pay tax and they spend money. And actually, the economy is getting $2.50 back for every $1 spent in the NDIS.
That's great.
So, in my humble opinion, I think that the government should just throw all the fucking money at the NDIS.
Got my vote.
And just not worry. And this pisses me off when people go, oh, but all that money, as if it's going into a black hole. I can tell you for a fact that funding is not going into a black hole. It is paying people's wages, and we all pay tax, and then we all spend money, and it is not like I am not buying yachts. Yes. And even if I bought a yacht, it would put money in the economy. But and I would pay tax on that yacht. I'm not.
Not yet, though, Hannah. Not yet. Okay.
I can't even buy a house.
That's okay.
It's a
we all got the
house
same
first.
Yes.
But it really frustrates me when people go, "Oh, but how are we ever going to afford it?" I'm like, what do you mean? How are we going to afford it? We're getting way more money back from doing it. So just keep giving it money. Yep. Like it blows my mind when people talk about that. Yep. Just don't buy submarines. Like it can't be this hard. And people with disabilities it's not as if we're throwing it to nothing. No. People with disabilities genuinely need this support. And, it frustrates me so much. I mean, what you say about some people in the rest of the world not getting this support is absolutely correct. And that is so. But in Australia, we do get to have this scheme.
Hallelujah.
And what I say to participants, if participants complain to me about the scheme, I explain, well, look, what we had previously was worse. Yeah. Trust me, it sucked. And if you were ever on any of those, it was worse. And now we have this national scheme that means it doesn't matter where in Australia you live, you get the same access or the similar funding. And the access is a little different because if you're rural, there's still no support workers. So I granted that. But theoretically, everyone's now got access to the same thing. Whereas before we didn't. We had a haphazard thing where, if you lived in the city, you had everything you could possibly want. And if you lived in the country, you had nothing. And if you lived in Western Australia, you got something way better than if you lived in Queensland, for example. So I love the NDIS.
So do I. And that's the thing too that I really want to highlight, that too many people out there, when something doesn't go right, it's throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I think it's brilliant, and I would not want to get rid of it. What I would personally like to see is on plans the getting rid of categories.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
That what it does is it confuses participants to no end. Every time, one of the first things I do when I sit down with a participant is I get out their plan, and then I draw all over it and say, this category pays for these people, and I write on it, and I say, then this category pays for these people, and I shouldn't have to do that. It's too complicated and convoluted. And in the end, like, sometimes you do need a bit more here and a bit more there. So why have these categories? It is so frustrating.
I agree.
You should be able to just turn around and go, hey, I think I might have a little bit of SLES this week. You know, as long as I'm in the age bracket to have SLES. And next week I want a little bit more of OT. And the week after that I want a bit more support workers. You know, like, it just, the categories, as a support coordinator, I'm really lucky that I get to understand all the categories. I have to understand them backwards and forwards. And this is something we have to be in the detail of.
The devil's in the detail, absolutely.
Right. But it shouldn't have to take almost a degree to understand what is written on a plan.
Absolutely.
And what LACs and planners send out in their emails to go, this means this and this means that, makes it worse. Yeah. Because it's their interpretation as well. This like legalese that is
good word.
Is just worse. Yeah. And I read these emails that some of my participants get, and I go, even I'm confused about it, and I know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Totally.
And I'm like, this is like, what is happening here? And so the other thing I would change is I would not have LACs, or I would have them do something totally different, because what they do at the minute with the doing some planning meetings and then planners do other planning meetings or reviews or whatever is confusing as fuck.
Absolutely.
And I think what we need is to send it all of it go as at the NDIA. None of it is piecemeal everywhere else. And all of them should have some understanding of disability. There should be no one in the NDIA that is hired that does not understand disability. And my problem is that
that's not happening.
That's not happening.
Let's be honest.
So that's the other thing the other bits I would change. Like what LACs might be useful for is as people who do hold forums in the community.
Forums, there it is.
And are there for people to come, like, physically come in and talk to someone about what's going on and they're not sure where to start. If you just had them as like someone there physically, which the NDIA can never be, then you'd like that role
better.
Would be much better.
Yeah, it would be.
But
more efficient, I guess.
Having them do some plan reviews and planning meetings, it just has never worked.
There's not any consistency.
There's no consistency.
There isn't. And that's where confusion is bred from.
Right.
Look, great points. I spoke to a plan manager a year or so ago about this whole thought of, there's a bucket of money in IDL and none in core.
Yeah.
And you've got to go to a plan review and wait for 3 months while this person's without supports.
Right.
Which would just be so easy to flip.
Right.
And make common sense as well and be more efficient.
Yes.
And they did that for a little while too.
Yes.
And then they went, I don't know, we're not going to do that anymore.
Right.
Even when it comes to funding for supports, I mean, I and my team certainly do a lot of work unfunded, and this is another thing to talk from purely and simply because, we run out of funding, and while we're waiting for more funding, we're not going to go and leave a participant high and dry. We're not one of those people.
No.
This is a lifelong journey.
Right.
I ain't going to abandon you in your time of need when it comes to money.
Exactly.
But it shouldn't be that hard with just being able, if you're doing your job, to be remunerated for it.
Yes.
And if there's they could have 50K in core, they're not touching.
Yes.
And have depleted, the use with you, and you can't just be paid. It's something where I agree with you that, and I think it's going to happen too. Like, I'm the world's most optimist.
Right.
Okay. Because I'd heard some whispers about it.
They've talked about it a few times, but then they go, oh yeah, we're going to do that at the next, at July,
Mm-hmm.
and then it doesn't happen, and then they renege on it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, we just need it now. No more stuffing about.
Yep.
We need to get rid of those categories and have more sensibles about this, because people know what they need. And it is never just 24 hours of support coordination.
Yeah, but someone's making that determination with just a quick meeting of the person as well. Like, so again, funding and with support coordination could be a whole podcast.
Yeah.
But I just want to see progress or discussion being made about it. Like you said before, one of the things that got me super excited when I came back to sunny Queensland last month or the month before was I had the pleasure of going to the Redlands Disability Network down there in Redlands.
Yes, they're great.
They are, I want them in SA.
Yeah.
Okay. And purely and simply because they had brought a customer engagement officer or someone from the NDIS that gave some lovely little chatter about things that are going on.
Yeah.
Some very basic Royal Commission discussion. And I came out of that with my legal background, just getting all excited going, oh, people are talking about this.
Yeah.
But I had no idea back in the southern state. Because I just think that those type of, and then Logan Disability Coalition's another one that I had the pleasure of going to this week. I love getting in and talking to other people that are passionate in this space about making positive change.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, there are those people that are living with disability in the world with zero supports.
Yeah.
We have to show gratitude for having the system. It's flawed, okay? But shit, the matrix is big, mate. So it's either you take the red or blue pill, remember? And we'll see which way rabbit hole you're going to go down.
Yeah.
My point is, without it, people's lives would not be as good as if we did have it.
Yes.
But we got to always strive like a business to be better.
Yeah.
To be more efficient, to be able, because I believe with the removal of, categories and just having ultimately a pool of money that's used for supports, we'll avoid a lot of clog-ups in the system. Plan reviews, broads, change of situations. Like you're doing one of them to basically say, can I borrow some of that money that's already sitting there that you've allocated to him, but it's just in a different bucket?
Right.
Come on. So there should be a formula. I don't know, but I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
The other thing I might change is the colours of the logo. Purple and white just don't do it for me for some reason. I feel like a nice green, something a bit more vibey, maybe yellow. But again, from a personal perspective with my son, extremely grateful for what I have been given from all of those people out there paying taxes. Thank you, including myself, okay? Because it's been life-changing.
Yes.
And there's just no better reward than when you see small wins turn into big wins for participants.
Absolutely.
So, but again, Hannah, that's what I like about you. You make amazingly good points. And I just think it's important to talk about it.
Yes.
The rolling stone gathers no moss.
Right.
I come up with a little few cliches in my time. But it's true, though, because that's what gives us the motivation to wake up in the morning.
Yes.
Change. It's okay for the goalposts to change.
Yes.
As long as, one, you're telling us about the change.
Right.
Okay. And and not just putting it on the NDIS website and saying that's enough.
No.
I want someone to put it into maybe a music song for me or something that I'm going to remember as I'm cruising
on a
along.
TikTok, on an email.
Yeah, don't be frightened to, we're an NDIS registered provider.
That shit around.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because this one gentleman that I met at one of the Redland Disability Networks, from the NDIS, he even gave me his email.
Yes.
So there we go. I was boom! I'm normally going to buy you dinner first, but, happy with that. My point is that it was great to get, just to realise that it's not black and white.
Yeah.
We do live in the grey area, but we have parameters that we can work in.
Yes.
But let's do it collaboratively. I can't even say the word in the morning. But he was just a great resource.
Yes.
That after it, we kind of hugged it out in happiness, in the sense being of just some of the info he gave me enabled me to go and talk to my team, change a few things and get some immediate results. Yeah. But I just think sometimes we're very quick to throw stones at the NDIS when things come back that aren't the way we want them to be. I think our job is to have the power of positivity and go, well, we come at it another way And we are also one too that when we look at funding levels and stuff now, when it's been given for a year,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that we can't in 90 days out go for an early plan review, so it's only 9 months.
Yes.
My point is there's always other ways that you can live today and solve the problem tomorrow,
Yes.
like with stuff.
Yes.
But this is all just working within the means that we have and the knowledge that we have to do it.
Yes.
So again, don't profess to know everything,
No.
but I want people to tell us where we can go to find it.
Yes.
Because where do you normally go when you want to just find out some new information? Are you a NDIS web chat kind of gal, or have you got someone on the inside there? Or a bit of both?
I try to avoid asking the NDIS at all costs.
You don't give Bill a call and just say, hey, Bill, while you're there, just want to know if this is reasonable and necessary as low-cost AT. So what is your recommendation?
If I had Bill's number, that would be far out. He'd never get me off the phone.
Say please and thank you.
Yeah. No, usually I will call colleagues like you good self.
Yeah.
And then I will sometimes have a quick squiz at the OG, operational guidelines, which constantly cracks me up that it's called OG.
Yep. Yes. I used to get called OG by my kids, mate. I get that. For other reasons. Yes. Yes.
And then at the end of the day, I just, pray to the NDIS gods and send information that I've got in and hope that it works. Yep. I guess the other thing is I read, I've got a subscription to the DSC newsletter. Yep. So I'm always reading whatever articles they're willing to write.
Yeah.
I will read it. Yep. Which are generally, very good.
Yep.
And I'm subscribed to the NDIS provider newsletter. Mm-hmm. So I generally peruse that. To be fair, often they repeat themselves.
Yeah.
And so there's often...
And I call it the rehearsed answer. At times they give you the black and white answer, and I'm not looking for that.
No.
So you make some good points there, which I concur with my learned friend, and they are as follows. You normally ring a colleague first, and that's what we all do.
Yeah.
So often when I hear some of my team members rightly say, oh, look, I'm just going to go and ask the planner, I don't start there. Because we're going to have a difference of interpretation more often than not about what's reasonable and necessary. I am asking the matrix for the rehearsed answer of what is reasonable and necessary. 9 times out of 10, you don't get the answer that you want.
No.
So I love having colleagues a la the League of Nations where I can call people because I don't have to agree with them. No. But what I'm really just trying to work out is what was the strategy you used to justify what's reasonable and necessary and hang your hat on?
Yes.
Because and I found that I've had far more successes in that space.
Yeah.
I'm also one too that I like all of these social media forums. I don't mind a few of those.
Yes.
I've accepted a few, where...
Pop a question into the Facebook group and go, hey, has anyone ever, come across this scenario? Mm-hmm. What do you reckon? Yep. And then my only issue with that is you sometimes get some pretty nonsense answers
absolutely.
And conflicting answers.
Of course.
You'll have 10 yeses and 10 nos, and you just go, okay, well, it's equally weighted.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my only issue with those.
But you and I both started, I guess, in the same place. We generally ring someone in the industry that may have experienced that. So when you came back, just digressing slightly, when you told me, what would I like to make change with the NDIS? I want to just be able to communicate more and better.
Yes.
And learn from that. We're doing it with AI when we ask questions on web chats.
Yeah.
But that brings me back to as well that I think slowly, particularly SSCs, we're almost turning into paralegals of us being able to, be on that side of the bench where we're actually advocating for the participant that this is what we want and why we see that.
Yeah.
But again, I'm very grateful that we have a starting point, and that is that we can ask someone for supports to help someone change their life. Mm-hmm. People helping people, but, it's flawed. So we've got to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
You know, but again, the gratitude that I have seeing people's lives get better.
Yes.
In the day, today.
Yes.
Is the best dopamine fix I think you can get, man.
Oh, yeah,
is people
absolutely.
being happy. Yeah. Because it doesn't always, you know, we're naive to think that it's always a success story.
Right.
However, when there's life, there's hope, is what I like to say.
Yes.
So if we wake up tomorrow and we got supports in hand, we live to fight another day.
Right.
So, but it's that thing too where I want to try and help as many people with my two hands, and that includes giving them the tools to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And part of that, or critical to that, is knowledge about what happens with the NDIS.
Yes.
Good points as always. I like the way you think, Hannah. Tells me you've thought about it, and it keeps you up at night, like as it does with me. But,
I've never had a job that has kept me up at night like this one does.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Like support coordinator wellness. It's a big space of mine. How's your sleeping going? How's your eating and your vitamin D intake going?
The vitamin D intake is very, very
and you're in
minimal.
the sunny state, yo. You can get it for free outside. I know we laugh and joke about it, but quite often in supervisions that I'm privileged to do with my team, I ask about them first.
Yeah,
it's so
that's
important
what I do
to me.
when I do supervision.
You have to. Oh,
the number one question
has to be
asking about how they are first.
Yes,
that's the way we start,
because we are so important to empowering people's lives.
Yeah.
And we want the best for them. That's why we're in the role.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps us up at night. So wellness of the support coordinator is pivotal because they're providing wellness for the person that's in the center of the supports.
Yes.
So, again, I don't profess to know it all.
Yes.
I just like to have the conversation where you can tell me that I went to bed at 11:30 last night and had to order Macca's as comfort food because I just couldn't think how to get that funding level. You know, it's okay, but I think that's
the bucket of chocolate ice cream.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah.
I get that. I just got to have fresher go-to produce, I think, there, Hannah. Like I'm a bit impartial to the sour cream and chives chips.
Yeah.
But look, we don't want to. We just want to balance it. We don't want to take away people caring.
Right.
But I think. And I've had to try and learn this myself, ever evolving, is that I need to know that you're living your bestest life.
Yeah.
And what that looks like.
Yeah.
You know, so because we're going to have our good days and bad.
Yeah.
But I don't want to lose people to the industry like they did in COVID with nurses. The stresses they put on people, they just wanted to run away from the job.
Oh, yes.
And I get it.
Yeah.
And it was terrible for the entire breakdown of the industry. But we got to learn from that. We got to learn like your wellness is the most important thing first and foremost. So we got to look at that every month.
Yeah.
We got to talk about it.
Yeah.
You can tell me that you haven't slept.
Yeah.
I guess because I'm 47, I think I grew up in an era where men didn't tell I don't know if it was just men, but no one told you kept the pressures of life and the stresses internally.
Right.
You're not a real man if you show that, you're not coping in others.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased to say that in my current role and whom I work for, it's okay to cry.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's take a moment, take a pause for the cause. Because if those emotions are there and feeling, it's one of my little colleagues' sayings. I love it. But it's true though, because you learn by those feelings.
Yeah.
And also it demonstrates that you're human.
Yes.
I feel like I've just had one of those, what do you call them? Deja vus. Okay?
Yeah.
That's a bizarre thing. But all of it just comes down to being able to just talk about it with somebody.
Yeah.
Find that person you can say, I'm not having a good time, or, because the world's a better place with you in it and supporting those people. That whole spit bucket analogy I use again.
Yes.
As in, I know someone's life's going to be better if you're in it, but I need to know your life is the best it can be. And I find historically, and that's why I'm so grateful with the staff retention, I guess, that we have at Here to Home, is that we allow them to choose their caseload.
Yeah.
So,
amazing.
Game changing, we call that, Hannah. Because there was a time I had 55 clients, was a team manager and trying to support 300 people. And that wasn't my bestest life, Hannah. Okay?
No.
And I'm not in that situation anymore because I couldn't find a way out.
No.
Some people thought that was the norm.
Yeah.
That is not the norm.
That is
no way,
you are not
shape,
helping
and form.
anyone.
I look at it as, how do you juggle 55 balls, yo?
Right.
And do it to the best of your ability.
Yes.
So, but very grateful that I experienced that, because I learned from that.
Yeah.
And I learned I can't give if I'm not in my best version of myself, how can I help all those being the best version? So I love where I work now. And look, being able to work from home too, or remotely, has been a game changer,
yes.
particularly in South Australia too.
Yeah.
By way of, we talk about funding levels and, you know, if we can do our jobs more efficiently.
Yes.
I mean, we always offer, I'm a bit old school, but I still like coming and being across the table from you, Hannah, and
yes.
getting a hug at
Face
the front
to
door,
face.
you know, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not always needed.
Yes.
And you can become more efficient, especially when you're dealing with the hourly prices now of an OT or others. Like,
yeah.
we're trying to avoid them having to get out near it. So there's an efficiency I see there.
Yeah.
And it's been life-changing for me as well, because I can still slap on a load of laundry while I'm saving the world as well at the same time. But again, that just helps me be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
And because we all have stress, we all have a threshold.
Yeah.
We all have anxiety.
Yes.
That's called being human.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes I've found it personally, where I have a little bestie that I call, if she's listening, Danielle out there, where I can just vent to her about everything and she understands it, and then tells me to go off and sleep and have something nice to eat for dinner. And then I come back refreshed in the trenches the next day, and giving the best version of myself. Because I don't want to, I love this job. I love this industry.
Yeah.
We are people helping people.
Yeah.
There is no greater reward.
No.
I love the life of servitude. Like, I do. I mean it. Like, it is a satisfaction that you can't, people, I think, drink or do drugs to have that feeling. Yeah. But there's nothing better than a smile from ear to ear. Yeah. When you're taking someone, I don't know, go and watch the Mighty Crows have a win in a showdown. And, you know, have to plug that in. And just, you know, having the best version of themselves. Yeah. But I like the opportunity to be able to just talk about ways to make it better. Yeah.
Awesome. We do have to start to wind up, because we've got to get to our next. We've got an action-packed day.
Yes, we do, and I appreciate that. Thanks for doing it.
So I was just going to finish off with, do you have any plugs? Anything you want to plug?
Well, I'm on a journey of people helping people, and I have some amazing people that feel exactly the same way. Yeah. So here to home, obviously, of whom I work for. We're very lucky that I have some, obviously, SSCs and SCs up in Brisbane that are extremely good and passionate about what they do. So if they need a hand, by all means, heretohome.com.au. Yeah. And I will find you the person that you need to help you. And that's the other thing too. Total choice and control of who you want to choose as your support coordinator, rather than just being told it's James or Hannah. Yeah. So we can, we obviously like to give profiles. We want to make a good match. Yeah. We're in the business of building and maintaining relationships. Yeah. So if you think we can help, funding or other, love to hear from you. Yeah. Thanks for your time, Hannah. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you for listening. Please share with people you know. Until next time, as the Green Brothers say, don't forget to be awesome.